Title: Under the Starry Sky. It had been a long and exhausting hike, but the group of friends had finally arrived at the campsite. They set up their tents, started a fire, and sat down to enjoy the peaceful surroundings. The sky was clear and full of stars, and the air was crisp and refreshing. They were all grateful for the chance to unwind and relax in nature. As they settled in for the night, one of the friends, a woman named Rachel, suggested that they tell stories around the campfire. Everyone agreed, and they took turns sharing tales of adventure and intrigue. But as the night wore on, the stories took a darker turn. The group began to share stories of ghosts, monsters, and supernatural encounters. They were all trying to outdo each other with the scariest tale. Finally, it was Rachel's turn to share a story. She paused for a moment, looking around at her friends, and then began to speak. Rachel's story was about a missing hiker who had disappeared in the nearby woods several years ago. His name was Mark, and he had been an experienced outdoorsman. He had set out on a solo hike one day, and no one had seen him since. The authorities had searched the woods extensively, but they had never found any trace of Mark. His family had offered a reward for any information about his whereabouts, but no one had come forward. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Rachel went on to describe the eerie feeling she had whenever she hiked in the same area where Mark had disappeared. She said that sometimes she felt as if she was being watched, or that she could hear footsteps behind her. She didn't know if it was just her imagination, or if something more sinister was at work. The group listened intently to Rachel's story, feeling a chill run down their spines. They had all heard of Mark's disappearance, but Rachel's account made it seem all the more mysterious and disturbing. As the group sat around the campfire, they began to feel uneasy. They couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched or followed. They heard rustling in the bushes, and saw shadows moving in the darkness. Suddenly, one of the friends, a man named Alex, stood up and pointed into the woods. "Did you see that?" he exclaimed. "There's something out there." The group looked in the direction he was pointing, but they couldn't see anything. They tried to calm Alex down, telling him it was probably just an animal or the wind. But he remained agitated, insisting that there was something unseen out there. As the night wore on, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. The friends huddled together, unsure of what to do. They wondered if they should pack up and leave, or if they should stay and wait it. Suddenly, a man appeared out of nowhere, emerging from the woods. He was tall and rugged-looking, with a backpack slung over his shoulder. The friends were taken aback by his sudden appearance, but he seemed friendly enough. The stranger introduced himself as John, and he said he was also camping in the area. He asked if he could join the group, and they welcomed him to sit down and share some stories around the fire. John was a good storyteller, and he shared tales of his own adventures in the wilderness. He spoke of hiking in remote areas of the world, and encountering all sorts of strange and interesting things. The group listened intently, fascinated by his stories. But as the night wore on, the friends couldn't shake the feeling that there was something odd about John. He seemed to know a lot about the local area, even though he claimed to be from out of town. And whenever someone mentioned Mark, the missing hiker, John's expression would darken. As the night drew to a close, the friends decided to turn in for the night. John said he was going to sleep in his tent, which was set up a short distance away from the others. The friends were relieved when he left, and they settled down in their own tents. But as they lay in their sleeping bags, they heard strange noises coming from John's tent. It sounded like he was muttering to himself, and they could hear rustling and shuffling sounds. They didn't know what to make of it, but they all felt a sense of unease. The next morning, the friends woke up to find that John was gone. His tent was still there, but he had disappeared without a trace. They searched the area, calling out his name, but there was no answer. As they packed up their gear and prepared to leave, they couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. They wondered if John had been responsible for Mark's disappearance, or if he had just been a strange and unpredictable individual. As they hiked out of the woods, they noticed something glinting in the distance. It was a piece of jewelry, lying on the ground. As they approached it, they realized it was a necklace that belonged to Mark, the missing hiker. The friends were shocked and horrified. They had stumbled upon the clue that the authorities had been searching for years. They realized that John had been Mark's killer all along, and he had been camping in the same area to relive his crime. As they made their way back to civilization, the friends couldn't shake the sense of unease that had settled over them. They knew they had been lucky to escape John's grasp, and they were grateful for the chance to tell Mark's story and bring his killer to justice. From that day on, they always approached their camping trips with caution, knowing that the peaceful beauty of nature could hide a darker side. But they also knew that the bond they had formed through their shared experience would stay with them forever, even under the starry sky.